Welcome to the RideShare Guy. My name is Chris, and a new show called Super Pumped, The Battle for Uber, has just premiered yesterday on Showtime. So we're going to go into episode 1, which is called Grow or Die, and we're going to do a breakdown as well as share some of our feedback when it came to the show itself. So spoiler warning for anybody who hasn't watched the show but is planning on watching it. Big thing though is you could still watch this video and still enjoy the episode itself. The whole thing is it's not like the MCU, so there's no big reveals, there's no craziness. It's basically a Hollywoodized version of how Uber began and how it got started. So let's get right into it, and it starts off with the intro immediately, and it's actually kind of a cool little intro because it's showing maps of San Francisco and a couple of quick scenes, but for the most part, it's maps, which reflects Uber basically for the entire app. Most of what you see on the app is a map. So it actually came out to be pretty cool. I thought that was nice, a little artistic touch, especially when it comes to just the customization of what the show is. But the show starts with them saying, "Are you an asshole?" And it was an interview of somebody trying to work at Uber, and Travis was interviewing them. And that is important for later, near the end of the episode, when it comes up again. And it also comes up throughout the episode whenever they're doing a little interview. And it always starts, "Are you an asshole?" So the person is looking confused as to say, "I don't know what I should say here, yes or no." But between that time, two people walk in and say, "Hey, we have an issue because there is a safety problem." And then Travis says, "Oh, I don't have time for a safety problem. What do I care? It doesn't matter." And then they come up with this idea of a safety fee, which is $1 added to every ride, and drivers would have to watch a video, and essentially it would do absolutely nothing but put $1 more into Uber's pockets. So it was just kind of showing some of the things there when it came to some of the perception that they show when it comes to trying to sell something to both riders and drivers. And then it goes into Travis saying, "I know that look." So the show goes on and begins in 2011, basically around the time where Travis has to go to Bill Gurley for investment into Uber to continue operating. So Travis goes to a bar to meet Bill Gurley, who is a venture capitalist and looking to become an investor for Uber. And they initially meet at the bar, have some conversation, and then at the end of that, they go outside and Bill tries to flag a cab because he is feeling a little drunk and wants to leave his car there. But there's no cabs around and he can't flag one down. So Travis comes out and says, "Hey, I got your problem solved for you right here." Pulls up the app, opens up the Uber app, orders an Uber. There's a car right away. They get in and they talk a little bit more. Then there's a cut scene going to a scene with Travis and Mike Ovitz, which is the first capitalist who was investing into the company. And there was some major issues there because essentially he just wanted to part out the company and not really have any type of investment or anything like that within it. So that is why Travis had to go to Bill Gurley to begin with and shop around for other investors. After the cutscene, they have a little bit more of an interaction between Bill and Travis in front of Bill's house, and they're talking about, what about the payment? And then Travis says, everything's paid in full. It's a frictionless payment because you don't have to worry about it. Your credit card's on file and you order the ride. Once it's complete, the transaction occurs. He asks about tipping, and Travis says, the rev share that we have, there's no worries about tipping because we pay drivers well. Then Bill asks two questions to Travis saying, is this going to be legal? And if he paid taxi cab drivers not to be outside the hotel because there always are some sitting there. Travis responds, yeah, it's going to be legal. And you think I actually did something like that? So they had a little bit of a sizing up thing when it came to who each other was. And it was to basically say, yeah, I'm going to invest into your company and you. And that is where that scene ended. Then the show goes on and it goes to Travis's family breakfast, where there's two things that you can take note from that, where there is some sort of brother dispute and also the support from his parents. Later than that evening, there is an Uber cab appreciation party where there is a big party, and Travis gives up and gives a speech about Uber and kind of saying, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could help control everything in your life and make it frictionless? And wouldn't it be awesome if there was a swipe right and there's a potential date? Well, that's kind of funny because that's talking about Tinder. And then they go on and say, well, you know what? We are here to take you from point A to point B. And then things like DWIs and DUIs are a thing of the past. Now I wonder, is this the party where they spent $200,000 on balloons? Going on, after the speech, he goes to his parents that are at the party and attending and showing support. He's asking, where is his brother? And the family says, well, you got to ask him in order for it to come. They got into a little scuffle there when it came to it. So Travis had to walk outside and get some fresh air. This is where we meet Randall Pearson, who is the head of the San Francisco Municipal Transit Authority. And they are the people who are saying that you need to follow suit. And if you don't, we're going to shut you down. They had a really heated exchange, and then it sets up for the following day, which is where there is another interview being conducted where they say, are you an asshole? And then all of a sudden, two people walk in and it says, are you Travis? He says, yes. And then they hand him a cease and desist order to stop operations within San Francisco. This is the point where Travis takes that and says to everybody in the office, this is a validation to be a disruptor. This is where we have made our stance and we are known. So he goes on to try to rally up the troops, and instead of making it seem like a bad thing, he is turning around and making it a good thing, saying, yes, this is the validation and we are a true disruptor. That's why we're getting this. Then they go on and say, hey, we need more drivers. So you see some scenes where they're going and trying to recruit many more drivers from taxi cab and also limos and trying to bring them over to being Uber drivers, where they gave them iPhones. And Travis is also trying to get a meeting with the mayor because he wants to share his side of the story, as well as trying to get the mayor on his side so they can pass legislation that will be favorable to Uber and its operation. The show then goes on and shows Randall Pearson what looks to be inside City Hall and two representatives from the taxi and livery services asking, what is the government going to do about Uber? Trying to put pressure on them to shut Uber down because their drivers and their customers are being taken and swindled because they're going to Uber instead. Now, this is where the taxi cab industry truly did die, because instead of coming up with a better way of doing things, they tried to rely on the government to make changes when, in fact, they didn't do anything to change themselves, and that's why they lost the battle when it came to Uber and the taxi cab industry. After that little government interaction, then it goes back to Travis's office where he's surrounded by his people, and they're saying there's no more money and trying to come up with ideas on how to continue. And they're talking about this thing called burn rate. Now, burn rate is something where company will burn through a lot of cash when it's trying to grow, especially at the beginning and its infancy. And so they're trying to figure out how they can make money and get money fast in order to keep drivers continuing to stay on their platform instead of going back to the taxi cabs where they came from. Someone in the meeting says that they should take Randall on his offer and sell the tech to the cab industry where they can get ahead on this. And so Travis kind of flips out and says, there's no way I'm giving up. And he starts yelling at the team. And then that bleeds into the entire office. And then he's saying, you got to be super pumped. And there it is. That is the title of the show, and it was obviously said within the show itself. Since Travis is all heated up, he's got to go out and walk the city streets for a little while to calm down before he calls his mom and says what's going on. His mom gives him some pretty good advice and says, yeah, go talk to Gurley and try to get more money. So he takes that advice, he goes to Gurley's office, sits down, shows him the burn rate numbers, and tries asking for more money. They have a little bit of an exchange on some of the things when it comes to burn rate and growth. And this is where they say the name of the episode, Grow or Die. Travis gets that second investment and Gurley says, look, this money's only going to go so far and it's the last of it. Then the next day, they're talking and trying to see how they can get a meeting with the mayor, yet the mayor still is not responding. So they decide, you know what? We're going to go to the riders and the riders are going to have our backs. They're the voters and they're the ones who are going to put pressure on San Francisco to make some changes and allow Uber to operate. So this is kind of a call to the whole AB5 and Prop 22 debacle when it came to what Uber really wanted and the push for Prop 22. Then they show them going out, getting plenty of signatures, and actually going in front of City Hall where they have a bunch of people out there. They have a demonstration and a box in a pyramid of all of the signatures that they collected. And at this point, this is where the mayor says, yes, I'll meet with you, Travis. So then there's a sit-down meeting between the mayor, Travis, and Randall Pearson where they have a little bit of an exchange. And Travis gives a very big speech trying to challenge the thought process of the mayor and get him on the side of Uber. Later, they show him back at Uber headquarters saying, you know what, we won, we got the city, the mayor's on our side, they're going to have favorable legislation for us going forward, and they are happy about that. And then two people come up and say, well, what about the cease and desist? What about all these fines? Did you get that taken care of? And Travis says, no, we didn't yet, and we got to figure out what is going on. During the same time, we see Gurley walking into the lobby of Uber Cab headquarters with another person that we find to be Emil Michael. So Gurley meant Emil to be the deal maker to help Travis and the team grow operations, not only in San Francisco, but throughout other cities. After Gurley left, there was a really heated exchange between the two because Travis thought this might be his replacement or he is somebody that is a spy. Emil says to Travis, I don't expect you to trust me. I expect you to test me. Travis then hands Emil the paper that has the fines and the cease and desist on it, says, we need to take care of this by the end of the day. And what do you got for us? So Emil looks at it and says, well, yeah, the transit authority has the ability to govern over cab and taxis. And this is the point where they both kind of come up and you can see them saying, well, then we're not really a cab industry. We're a rideshare model. And then they come up with the idea of shutting down Uber Cab and restarting it as Uber. Somebody comes into the office and says, hey, Travis, you asked me a question earlier and I didn't answer it. I want to answer it now. And the question was, are you an asshole? So the person then says, yes, I am. And Travis looks at him and says, good, because in order to work at Uber, you got to be an asshole. The episode then ends with Travis saying he's not only going to be taking over San Francisco, he's going for New York City next and the rest of the world. So now let's go on to my thoughts on this. And I thought it was a pretty good show. I thought for the most part, it was entertaining. And that's exactly what it is that you need to keep in remembrance. If you know Uber's actual origin story, then you probably won't enjoy this because you're probably going to say, hey, the actual origin story is better than how the show has portrayed it. And again, the show is Hollywood. It's Hollywoodized version of events that it's loosely based on the origin of Uber. So remember to keep that in mind. When you look at it as an entertainment show, then yeah, it is good. But if you look at the actual depiction of how Uber started, they're not anywhere near each other. So keep that in mind if you decide to watch this show. And there were a number of people on Twitter who were speaking out against the show, mostly because it did not actually portray the true version of how Uber really had started. And that story is really interesting and people should really follow that. And people are upset that the show didn't really go with the true origin story of Uber because it was very interesting. So what are your thoughts on the show? Did you enjoy it? Did you watch it? Are you going to watch it? Comment below and let us know. And for those who don't know where to find Super Pumped, You can watch it on Showtime Sunday nights at 9, I believe, or you can turn it on the app pretty much after it's released at any time. If you enjoyed the breakdown of the show, super pumped, give the video a thumbs up. Let us know if you did. Also, make sure if you have any comments to comment down in the comment section. Make sure you subscribed, ring the bell for notifications so you'll be notified when new videos come out as we talk all about gig economy and Uber and Lyft driving and how drivers can really learn to maximize their earnings. So again, make sure you're subscribed. And drive safe, everyone.